We're going to move on and look at the international newspapers now. Florence Vilmanos with us here on set. A lot of the international papers, aren't they, reacting to the referendum held in Syria?
That's right, and I think it's interesting to see how different papers react to it. So we're going to look at a couple of front pages, starting with China Daily, which just states the facts. Syria votes on a new constitution, doesn't mention any of the unrest, for instance, in Homs. The Wall Street Journal also has it as its front page. Syria votes as fighting continues, and there you see a photo of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and his wife, Asma, talking to journalists after he cast his vote. And then a very strong front page from The Independent, which says Assad's ultimate insult. And there you see, on the one hand, the myth that there's that same photo of the president casting his ballot, and then the reality where you see a photo of the unrest. So a very different kind of take on the same situation. And there's a strong opinion piece in The Independent which calls it a farcical vote that does nothing for Assad's people. It says that basically Assad put together this meaningless, quote, a shopping list of reforms to the constitution, promises that The Independent says that he's already broken, and the whole reason that he's doing this is basically to throw dust into the eyes of the international community and to buy time from his allies in Iran and Moscow and in Beijing to flatten Homs. And basically, according to the article in The Independent, we've been here before. This is exactly what happened in Yugoslavia, and what the international community should do is learn a lesson from the past, that basically sitting on your hands and waiting for a natural equilibrium of power to reassert itself is not a strategy, but a substitute for one. So The Independent asks, what are our options? According to this article, Beijing is probably going to follow whatever Moscow does. So the thing to do is try to once again get Russia to change its course. And the only people that can do that, according to The Independent, are the United States.
And you've enjoyed The Independent today, haven't you, Florence? Because she's also picked out a very cynical cartoon about the situation in Syria.
Cynical and timely. We just saw that the artist won the Oscar for the best film. Well, according to this cartoon, The Autocrat is the winner for the award for deafening silence in an international role. And there you see President Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin with zippers that have their mouths shut. A very sinister cartoon.
Okay, and speaking about Russia, Mikhail Khodorkovsky, the jailed man, of course, who was Russia's richest man, he's written a piece featured both in The Guardian and in the International Herald Tribune.
That's right. It's an article that he wrote from his prison cell in northern Russia, and so it's called "What's at Stake in the Russian Election," and it comes a day after this big protest that we saw in Russia. And Khodorkovsky says that though the outcome of the presidential election is pretty much a foregone conclusion, Putin is most definitely going to win, according to him, we shouldn't assume that little is at stake. What's interesting is whether or not he's going to win in the first round. Now, last time he ran for president, Putin won overwhelmingly in the first round. But this time, if there's a second round, according to Khodorkovsky, this means that change is on the way, that basically if there's this proves that there's an evolution, not necessarily a revolutionary approach that can be moved forward. And he says that there are fundamental similarities between the Arab Spring and what's going on in Russia right now. Basically, people are seeking dignity and respect, and they're being empowered by dignity. And he says that it's the role of our generation, quote, to change the paradigm in Russia without a civil war and without blood on the streets. And he says that regardless of the result, political change, real political change in Russia is unavoidable. I'm going
to mention Australia now. Prime Minister Julia Gillard defeating rival Kevin Rudd, of course, in the Labour Party leadership ballot.
Yes, we're going to look at just two front pages. First of all, on the Australian, which is the centre-right page, which says that there's fears that Gillard's victory will not quell the Labour warfare because this drawn-out battle exposed internal party tensions. And there's a similar, maybe even more pessimistic feeling on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, which is a conservative paper. Lose for Labour, no winners for the party in tatters. According to the Daily Telegraph, the Labour Party is doomed.
Cheerful stuff. Now, finally, you mentioned the artist earlier on, stealing the show at the Oscars, but Sacha Baron Cohen, he stole the show on the red carpet, rather, didn't he?
That's right. He came dressed in character. He's releasing a film this summer called The Dictator, and he arrived at the Oscars as General Aladdin, a character based on it's a Middle Eastern character based on basically a mix between Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. And there you see him. Now, he did manage to upstage Hollywood's most beautiful people on the red carpet. He arrived in the longest stretch limo, according to this article in the Daily Mail. He was flanked by attractive bodyguards. And what he brought along with him, an interesting little urn full of what he says were Kim Jong-il, or his dear friend and tennis partner's ashes, which he accidentally dumped on the red carpet. And it's funny and if you read that article in the Daily Mail, you'll see a bunch of other photos of famous people who lined up to take photos of themselves with the dumped ashes on the red carpet. So it seems like he definitely stole the pre-Oscar show. And, we'll be hearing a lot about that, I'm sure.
It's all about publicity, isn't it? Fantastic publicity for him, anyway. All right, Florence, thanks. All right, Florence Milmonet with the International Papers here on France 24.